Alright guys, we are going to do a quick video to review what we learned on quadratic functions yesterday. Starting with how to graph them, how to make a table, okay? So the very first thing that we learned was finding the axis of symmetry. The formula for finding the axis of symmetry is x equals negative b divided by 2a. So there is my A and there is my B. So I'm just going to plug these right into the equation. Negative 8 divided by 2 times negative 2. Okay. That gives me a positive 8 over negative 4, which is the same as negative 2. So my equation for the axis of symmetry is x equals negative 2. Okay, so I'm going to come over here on the x-axis to negative 2, and I know that my line is going to go right through there. Okay, next I need to find the vertex. Well, the x value of the axis of symmetry is a part of my vertex. My job is just to plug in the x value and find the y value, okay? So if I plug that in, let's see what I'm going to get. So I'm going to plug in a negative 2 right here everywhere I see an x. Okay. Oh, and that's a negative. There we go. Okay, if I use a little bit of mental math here, I will very quickly find out that my axis of symmetry, let's see, that's a positive 4, that's a negative 8, plus 16 is a positive 8, minus 4 is 4. So my y value here is 4. Okay. I'm going to plot that vertex. Negative 2, negative 4, right there. Okay. All right. And then that is going to be the very center of my table. The very center of my table is going to be, let me put that in gray. Well, no, I'll use the same color. So negative 2 and then 4. So what I need to do is find, oops, that should be a negative 3 and a negative 4. I also need to find negative 1 and 0. Okay, so if I go ahead and plug in all of these values into my function, just like you just saw me do to get the y value of the vertex, we will find that the other numbers I get out, I've already kind of done this for us. I'll get negative 4, negative 3, 2, negative 1, 2, and 0, negative 4. And if you remember what I told you in class, is that allows us to see this fun rainbow pattern in the y values that match up. And so I know for certain that whatever I see here in the middle is definitely my vertex. So I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to plot these points. Okay, so I have a negative 4. Whoops. I plotted this wrong. I did this as a negative 4 earlier. It should be a negative 2, positive 4, right there. Okay. All right. Now my other values are a negative 4, which is right there, negative 3, 2, negative 1, 2, and 0, negative 4. And here is what this picture looks like. Alrighty, so that's what our function roughly looks like. Let's go ahead and determine the y-intercept. The y-intercept from the table, you can see it's right there. And from the graph, you can see it is right there. So the y-intercept is at 0, -4. The domain of my function is, we talked about it in class, but it is always all real numbers. And then let's talk about the range. So I'm going to pick a different color to work with here. How about a pretty purple pink? Okay, so my range. I need to focus on where my vertex crosses the y-axis, and it is right here at 4. Okay, and then your function. You need to think about, does your function from y equals 4 go up or does it go down? And we can clearly see that it goes down. So the inequality that we use to show down is going to be less than or equal to. Okay, so down here, my range is y is less than or equal to 4. And then I'm all done. That is everything I need to know in a nutshell about quadratic functions. The axis of symmetry, the vertex, the y-intercept, the domain, the range, looking at the table, and identifying features from the graph. Okay? All right, let's see what we are going to do next. Finding zeros. This is pretty easy. Okay, to find our zeros, we want to see where the line crosses the x-axis, and that's the key thing there, the x-axis. Okay, so number 1 is really easy. I see it crosses the x-axis at -2. It should be a negative. And it crosses the x-axis at +2. Okay, and that's it. Example 2. Oh, and this, I'm going to say this has 2 solutions because it crosses 2 times. Just a quick review. Okay. Example number 2, it only crosses the x-axis right there at x equals 1, which means that it only has 1 solution because it only crosses 1 time. And then example 3, here's the x-axis right here, and it does not cross anywhere, so we just say no solution. For right now, you're going to say no solution. When you get to Math 2, you're going to learn how to deal with that. Okay, so you will have solutions for that in Math 2. But that's just your preview for next school year. Okay, and that's how easy it is finding zeros of your quadratics when you have a graph to look at. But what if I have an equation to look at? Okay, so you will have access to the Desmos calculator, and I want to show you how absolutely easy it is to find your zeros with the graphing Desmos calculator. So we are going to go to Desmos. Okay, all 4 of my examples I've already gone ahead and typed here for you. It is very easy to do that if I were to add an expression, and then you would just type using this keypad down here. So 2x, you can use the square button right there. Or if you remember, another way I told you in class that you could do it is if you just type 2xx, your calculator understands that x times x is the same as x squared. Okay? And then you would just type the rest of your function. I also want you to notice that I have typed these. This one is in parentheses. It's not in the standard form that we're used to seeing. And then this option number 4 is way different than what we're used to seeing. And so when we get to number 4, we're going to take a look at why that is. Okay? But let's start out with example number 1. And it's going to be very easy. So here's what my graph looks like. All I did was type it into the Desmos calculator. If I click the function and highlight it over here, then you can see that these little points show up. And if I click on the point, it tells me the location of that point to a T. So here my x is -1. Here my x is -3. And that is as easy as it is. So here x equals -3 and x equals -1. And that's as easy as it is. Let's go back to Desmos and go to number 2. Now, notice I clicked on number 2 and this green line popped up. If I want to hide that red line so I don't see it, I just click on the color red over it where the function is typed in. Okay? Do the same thing here for number 2. Click on the function itself. The little points will pop up. You click on the points and those are your solutions. So -4 and -1. Now I want to show you, so you can write x equals -3 and x equals -1, just like I did there. Another way to show your two solutions is to write them as a set using the little squigglies. Okay, so that's another way that you can write your answer. Okay, number 3, I see some parentheses here. Let's go ahead and look at Desmos. I'm going to hide the green line. I've typed it in exactly how I see it. And I can see that I do have a function, but I kind of need to zoom out a little bit. So you've got these buttons here to zoom out or zoom in, okay? If you zoom all the way out, then you can see that quadratic curve that we're used to seeing. Highlight that function, and it doesn't matter how zoomed in or out you are, you can still click on the 2 zeros, -2 and 6. Okay. If you wanted to zoom in to see those, you don't have to see the entire function to still see where the zeros are located. So let's go type those. So -2 and 6, -2, comma 6. And then here is our last one. 6x squared equals 54. This is got an equal sign and none of the others did. So this looks way different than we're used to seeing. Okay. So now we've got a black line